welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about the K9 episode, Mutant Copper. Written by John O'Brien and is directed by James Bogle. Now I must confess, despite this episode having poorly directed, we've got the same characters, K9, the series isn't very popular for reasons which are clear as day. It's not that authentic, it's cheaply made, it's got poor acting, poor character development, poor scripts in general. However, I will admit, I did really enjoy this one. This one had a lot of fun and a little bit of warmth to it, which keep the story nice and simple. Sure, we're still dealing with the same sets and the same production values as with before, as well as similar scripts that keep the story feeling very mundane, in a not so good way, keeping them feeling really repetitive and stuff. But this episode does deal with something which makes it a lot more different than any other stories. And I will admit, I genuinely had a blast with this adventure. Now, before I get into the actual story itself, I do want to mention that this story features the acting talents of Thomas Calder. He is an actor who, when I saw him in the story, he looked really familiar, and when I tracked down his work, he hadn't actually been in anything that I've seen. However, on YouTube, he's now I think he's like an amateur or pro filmmaker and musician. So if you haven't seen his work already, I highly recommend him out. I might put him in the description. He makes these really weird gothic abstract short films, which really hits to my sentimentalities. So I really enjoyed them, and if you're going to take anything else from this, go watch his videos. They are really fun and really interesting. Has nothing to do with Doctor Who, but they are really cool, and you could, I guess, headcanon that it's his character in this story who has just gone completely, absolutely mental, which does kind of tie into this story in a sense. So, at the start of the story, we see a protest going on. Starkey and K9 seem to be in the background as we see a protest led by Georgie and her friend Marcus, a completely new character who, if I must be honest, when this episode aired, she seemed, when I watched this episode, I should say, watching it for the marathon was the first time I've ever seen this episode, with every other K9 episode, with Georgie being so close to this character and seemingly to have this connection, and the fact it's never established that she had a friend before. My first thought was that they recast Darius, and it was a really strange sort of recast. But no, this is Marcus. This is the character that's played by Thomas Calendar. So if you're interested, this is the character. And Georgie and Marcus, they are protesting against the work of the department, the big evil organisation of the K9 series, whilst there's this video footage of the RoboCop's characters, I can't remember what they're called, the CCPD, Robot Coppers, let's call them RoboCoppers. They basically state anybody who protests the department will be arrested and stuff, and so despite this being a protest, we have other characters there. It seems really strange. It's how popular is the department? One episode earlier on in the series, they were recruiting people, and people were just walking in, and now they're having a massive for K9 protest outside in a really public area. It's very strange. But after a while, because K9 and Starkey get involved as they come close, and they're telling Georgie, he's okay, you've got to calm down. You're going to get yourself arrested. You're going to get yourself in a virtual prison when Georgie introduced Marcus to Starkey, Marcus is just like, what's wrong with the prison? And then Starkey's just like, well, speaking as somebody who had been to that prison, it's not that pleasant. You should try and avoid it as much as possible. Before the police decide to break out, and those robot cop characters start chasing all of the protesters, with K9, Starkey, Marcus, and Georgie going around some of the like a forestry area, where they bump into one of the robo characters. However, he seems to be a bit odd. He's got his ear seems to be falling off with wires all like connecting to it, and he seems to be not completely there. He's looking at birds. He seems to be really fascinated with the wildlife on it, and he talks to our characters, and he has no interest in capturing them. He doesn't understand why would he capture them. Do you want to, please? And when the other robot characters come to try and capture them, this new robo character, the one with the ear falling off, he actually helps our team escape. And he seems to have this sort of childlike mind. I don't want to say childlike mind, but he's, I don't know, that might be a bit offensive, but he's very, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't really think. He's very innocent in that sense. And so Georgie and Starkey take this robot, the Robocop, into Griffiths' house, where we quickly learn that he has been augmented in a way which actually crosses over his DNA, robot DNA, apparently. It's cortex with actual human DNA, transforming this creature, this robot, into a half robot, half human, with a sort of soul growing. And the main debate in the story is that basically he's kind of in this pain, and they decide whether they should not help him, or whether fully convert him into a human or into a completely robotized fashion, with Georgie and Starkey essentially saying, yes, we should do our best to... Actually, no, sorry. Georgie and Darius, who gets introduced to Marcus, but when they start holding hands with Georgie, and Darius obviously has been established as having a crush on Georgie, gets kind of bummed out by this, and it kind of has this bonding with Darius and Starkey, as they kind of have this, not the jealousy, well, for Darius it is kind of jealousy, but with Starkey it's more of a, this is a strange new person that's just jumped into our lives, essentially. And Georgie kind of takes a liking to this new character. So you've got all of these characters, and each character have a different opinion on what they should do with Birdie. They named the robot Birdie because of his fascination with birds. And he just wants to, he doesn't know what's the matter with him. He doesn't know why everybody's chasing him, why everyone's after him. But essentially we learn that in this world, it's against the law to augmentate one of the robots. If they were found with a robot which has been augmentated, then they would be arrested and be sent to prison for essentially their entire lives. All of them, Griffin, Starkey, Darius, Georgie, might even be Georgie's mother as well, and Thorn, like the main villain of the story. He's basically trying to keep things under wraps. He's actually acting a bit unusual. He doesn't want anybody really breaking out the story that there is this half human, half robot individual going around, but he's still, he wants to get the robot off Griffith as quickly as possible, and he has like a sort of tracking device which will get him there. But then there's this main debate within our main crew as Georgie is like, no, we should convert him, yes, we should convert him into a completely human, so it has feelings, emotions, it can be its own person, and taking that away from him would be an absolute catastrophe of justice. And we should protect him and protect his life from the department who would to turn him back into a killing machine, a robot, take away its free will. K9, on the other hand, now this is an issue with the story, not really an issue with the story, but an issue with the placement in the series. It makes me theorise that this episode was actually supposed to air a lot earlier in the series, as K9 doesn't understand in this episode the importance, the understanding of emotions, and is actually all for turning the robot copper, Birdie, back into a mindless drone. And he debates with Starkey. It's like, I don't understand the importance of emotions. You people make it out that it's the greatest thing ever, that it makes you superior. But from all the evidence, it divides your mind of logic. It's completely not only irrelevant, but actually harmful for your species. I don't know why you prize emotions so highly. This seems really out of character for K9 at this point in time, who has had a few adventures where he's trying to learn the understanding of humanity and is wanting a soul of himself. His philosophy here is really reminiscent of the Cybermen. It's so bizarre. It feels really out of character for him in this series. The story taken on its own, or taken much earlier on, maybe like the third or second episode in the series, would be completely justified, completely fine. But for some reason they put it here. So, I don't know, you could easily headcanon it that this episode does take place. Actually, no, you can't, because Thorne's here. Ah, yeah, you can't do that, can you? Thorne is the main villain here, and he is clearly established as being part of the... So I don't know what happened here. Maybe it was more when the scripts were being developed, did it get pushed back to later on, or after this episode was mostly completed, did they come up with this little story arc of K9 becoming more human? But either way, the point stands is that K9 is the cold, logical sense of reasoning in this story, as the one who's like, right, we'll turn him back into a normal robot, and we will send him back to the department, and none of us will have to risk our lives. He won't even remember if we alter his memories to enough, and he won't even be in this pain as well. He'd be out of this torment in a way. And so, yeah, there's this really gripping storyline here, which could have failed. However, Birdie is just this innocent character who clearly has no idea why he's being chased. He doesn't even has an inkling of the fact that he is in danger in a sense. And you have these scenes where he's bubbling around, he's following Darius, and he's a bit bumbly. All the characters that try to get him to do stuff by promising that there's birds that he can look at earlier on. He reminds me a lot of, say, characters like Forrest Gump, where their innocenceness, their positivity, and just their light of output really puts a shine into your point of view. And it's just it's just really strange as well, because we've had these characters, these robot characters, stomping around and being evil and really being like lifeless drones for the series, the stormtroopers of the K9 universe. However, with this episode, where it's established that they can essentially gain the ability of human emotions and having this, it kind of does to the Robocops what Dalek did to Daleks. Okay, not that. Okay, that's a bit of an overstatement there. No, it does not. Dalek is one of the best episodes of Doctor Who ever. It did not do that. But my point kind of stands, if you could see my point of view. There's a scene where they need to get a particular opponent to transfer the robot, to transfer Birdie one way or the other. However, it's in the department, specifically in one of the rooms in the department's main headquarters, which K9 could easily fly up and come down, and the fact that all of the robots are looking for Birdie because Thorn is a bit nervous, is a bit on edge, he doesn't want any of this sort of leaked because as we learn here, Thorn is actually the one who is altering these robots and trying to take something out of human to make them more aggressive and much more angry. This is a failed project which created Birdie, and Birdie got out free, with Thorn finally finding out about Griffiths and that the robots there. So he gets all of his men, he gets all of his drones, just all on Griffiths' building, and originally it's like, how did you know that he was here? There's no way that you could find out. And Thorn basically accidentally reveals that someone will not get paid if the robot is not found. And it turns out that Marcus, Georgie's friend, was actually a spy for Thorn. It turned out that yes, he is part of the protest, you know, he does the kind of believing him in to a certain degree. However, he's much more interested in money and profit and actually having a job in the department, claiming that he wants to sabotage him from the inside. This deal he has with Thorn would allow him to establish. However, I think it's clear by the acting and the script that that was just a bluff, essentially, to cover up his face, and he was hoping that when Birdie is found and is captured and is taken, then they would, the Marcus would then take, you know, all the credit and tell Georgie about it. Well, not tell Georgie about it, but share the profits with her as his girlfriend. It's also as well that we learn, I think as well, that Marcus actually led Birdie to Griffiths in the sense of Thorn letting Birdie go to Griffiths' house means now that there is a cause for him to arrest them in the eyes of the department. And so it's kind of this really cunning plan, and it's a really good cunning plan if it wasn't for the fact that our main characters, Starkey, Darius, Griffith and Georgie, essentially make it out that Marcus was actually a double ploy, making it out that he was actually lying for us because he was actually one of us this whole time. And Marcus is just like, what? No. What are you on about? I'm with you, Thorn. The robot is here. You gotta trust me. You gotta believe me. However, he doesn't, and Darius, with his taxi, actually is able to get Birdie out of the country and puts him free in a small little forestry somewhere out of London. This also means that though he's not safe, although he's still out there, he can enjoy himself with the birds. And the story ends with this nice little moment of Birdie basically going out and just looking at the trees, and he's just following. He says, "This is fascinating. This is amazing." And he's looking at the birds like, "Oi, what are you doing then?" So all our characters have a laugh, and it's just like, I hope Birdie's going to be alright in the wild. And it all worked out. Marcus is a dick. He can get out of there. And so that's how story ends. And that was Mutant Copper. Overall, for a K9 episode, it's actually a pretty decent story. You have this lovable character that the story revolves around. You have this good dilemma. What happens that we should do with this character, and it also plays with a lot of emotions and stuff, which I only really lightly tackled on because there was so much stuff I wanted to talk about. But I feel like the story still kind of missteps here and there. K9's characterization in the story is completely obsolete compared to his rest of the series, so that could be considered a huge criticism. But overall, I generally think this is one of the better episodes of K9, and I do actually recommend it if you're interested in watching this show. I know you're most likely not interested, but if you were, out of any simpling, this episode might be a good one to try out. So that is Mutant Copper. So join me next time where Amy Pond will be asking her questions to the Doctor and she will finally get answers. So join me next time for Good Night, and I'll see you next time on the Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-da!